They'd smoke crack, yo.
Shut up. All right, we're live. It's Wolf King's room. We're just gonna be talking about some general shit. Probably get into that science, into some politics, all that. Okay, that's no. Don't know where that came from. Okay, so Tanya, you said you had some questions about science. Specifically, what about?
I do. Like evolution kind of questions, because I get the whole, natural selection thing. Like, I heard the story about, or the example about, you know, polar bears and how, there was brown bears, but then, one turned white because of a mutation, and then, in the snow they survived, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I get that. But what about like at the very beginning when we were just like single cell uh, organisms and stuff like that? How the hell did we get other parts? You know what I'm saying? And I guess one of the things I want to know is, well, here, let me start with this question. Is DNA made up of like elements? That's probably a stupid question, but
What you mean, like
Uh,
atoms?
hold on, because she actually brought up a couple of interesting questions. The answer to your first question is have you ever heard of Kanye West's life analogy?
mm, I don't think I have.
Okay, it's basically a grid that have, let's say, cells, just for the sake of simplicity, right? Now they consist of simple little interactions, and what I'm doing is I'm screen sharing the example because it works better. Now you have simple little interactions moving about, like having these simplistic type of things, but given regularities and time and variation, they will produce shapes that could replicate themselves, that could become more organized, that could self-assemble. Like, are you seeing like this thing right now? This little grid.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, simple little bits interacting with themselves. However, if you apply like regularities, let's say a selection criteria, they will produce emergent patterns. You know, symmetrical, and essentially it could grow in complexity. And if you could understand that, just imagine what the universe can do. See, just
So that
imagine what the
doesn't
universe could.
necessarily. So that part, what you're describing right now, that doesn't require mutations and stuff, then, right?
Well, I mean, like I said, with the whole thing with emergence, it's all about like these simple interactions coming together and forming larger, more complex structures. Usually when you talk to creationists, they say that like let's say the eye is so amazing that it couldn't be it just couldn't evolve over time as a particular trait, right? When you understand with our species, with the whole thing with of how to develop depth perception, as a very good trait for developing and maintaining hand-eye coordination, and it's good for this environment with regard to not breaking your neck. It's fairly reasonable to understand like how, given these regularities and billions of years, organisms can have these special types of traits. You get me now?
Especially even more so, the human eye is not the most complex eye, nor is it is the best eye. There are other animals which have eyes that are way more in tuned with the reality around them than the human eye is. I think octopus are one that are cited as having much better eyes than we have.
Yeah, because aren't there eyes that actually can see things that we can't, like infrared and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, and they can see way more of the light spectrum than are some bits that we can't. I mean, the other question you brought up is about are proteins made of elements? And the answer is yes. Everything in our universe is made up of matter, is made up of atoms, which bond together to form more complex structures, which bond together to form more complex things like proteins, which bond together to form more complex things like RNA and DNA.
Yeah, it's really like it's really just a natural process of emergence. You know, given these regularities, it's easy to understand how the phenomenon. Well, not necessarily easy, but fairly reasonable and a little simple to recognize how the phenomenon life is really an emergent property of interacting molecules from the laws of chemistry that, once have emerged, the basic principles of evolution apply to its growth and complexity. That's sort of why I showed that example. It's reasonable to understand how atoms can become cells, and those cells can become organisms, and natural selection and random mutation, and you got us.
So it had to be by chance that all the pieces came together to form
It doesn't
DNA.
take chance.
No. It's not It's hold on, Chaz. It's not a matter of chance. I mean, there is order to it, but the order is spontaneous. In a universe that might seem chaotic to the untrained eye, actually, basic principles of cosmology, cosmic evolution, and biological evolution produce these basic phenomenons that we see in the natural world.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the idea of chance, Tanya, is something that you have to understand, that just because something has a better degree of certainty doesn't mean that it is certain. For instance, if I try and roll a dice to get a 6, I've got a 1 in 6 chance. To win the national lottery, it's like a 1 in 14 million chance. I could play the lottery and roll a dice at the same time. I could win the lottery and fail to roll a 6 on a dice. So the idea that something seems astronomically uncertain doesn't mean it can't happen. It means there was one outcome that had to happen out of so many other outcomes that could have possibly occurred.
Right, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, I mean, let's say one of the other 1 in a trillion outcomes had happened. It would still be just as likely as the other 1 in a trillion outcomes, which is something about probability that people don't really think about when they make those sort of things. So when people like Nephilim say the sort of stuff that they do, they are just making dumb statements they can't back up, especially because we couldn't actually quantify how probable the outcome of our universe and indeed the reality we find ourselves is, because we do not truly know how to fully quantify the reality and the universe that we live in. The only person who would know that certainty would, for all intents and purposes, be a god.
Yeah, I caught that too a while ago when people would say, "Oh, it's just, the odds of that happening are like crazy," and it's like, well, I mean, so is everything else, like you just said. So, yeah, good point.
Yeah, and
Well,
in fact, go ahead, Nadia.
And there's another trick where we're dealing also with, I guess, the manipulation of distributions, right? The distribution is the result. So, for instance, if you are shuffling cards, right? Let's say when you're shuffling cards and you get your own hand or whatever, you always throw away the clubs and diamonds, and then you randomly get things from the deck upstream, right, as replacements, and you're going to have after acting that way for long enough, you're going to have a strong tendency toward having a lot fewer clubs and diamonds, even though it's 50-50 and such. And that kind of change in the distribution is what's going on, right? That's why we talk in allele frequencies are talked about, right? Because they're parts of a probability distribution, or in probability distribution is actually just bidding the things up into categories and saying, okay, well, out of these bunch of bears, so many are what shade of color or whatever, and You have a frequency for each day, like same as for the suits of cards, right? So it's pretty understandable how that distribution that's kind of random is shaped by our deterministic factors.
Yeah, and actually, what I want to get into now is I'm just gonna screen share this. Okay, the general pattern I've seen with creation, especially involved in the great debate community, is that they love this argument from design where they try to use these analogies. In fact, I'm gonna actually bring it up right now. They've actually done a rather fairly poor job of trying to quote mine several scientists. In fact, which is okay. You see this? Apparently, true fuck aka true empiricist. He's been pushing this bullshit for a good minute now. Yeah, he's talking about how DNA is basically information. Okay, just gotta stop this. Okay. Yeah, so basically he's saying that the DNA and the chemical interactions that are going along with it is actually a matter of it's actually a message. It's a language. Therefore, it must have been designed by an intelligent thinking mind. Now, the problem with this is he uses analogies that you'd understand for anything else, right? Like a person writing a book, a painting having a painter, like that classic bullshit.
Having a maker.
Yeah. Therefore, life must have a designer and stuff like that. But the thing is, this is just based on intuitive assumptions. It's not really empirical evidence. It's only going to be a valid scientific theory if it could actually be falsified, or you can make meaningful predictions about that to understand the biosphere, right? And unfortunately for creationists, they don't really have that, or for like 1,000-year-old giants or Noah's Ark or flood or whatever. Well, I mean, it's really a matter of hold on. I'll let you talk in a minute, Jess. It's really a matter of mutations, biochemical changes to the genetic material of organisms, and whether or not those mutations will actually be more or less common in the successive generations in a matter of natural selection, weeding out the strongest from the weakest fit genes, and deciding whether or not one is going to be more plastic to the environment. I mean, that's the exact paradigm that could be demonstrated in both nature and in laboratory settings, and that's apparently the explanation for the biosphere. Well, the growth and complexity in the biosphere. Now, what you were going to say, Chess?
I was going to say that you could say to some degree that human beings do have a creator. It is their environment. It is the rapid expansion that happened years ago. Chemicals were placed in an environment which has allowed them to become way more complex, to be able to do more complex things like form single-celled organisms. Those cells led to the ability for multi-celled organisms. So we do have a creator. It's just like when you put, say, sodium in a glass of water, you get a reaction. When you put chemicals on a planet near a sun, you get a reaction.
Yeah, and the thing is, like with the recent advances that have actually been done, like with regard to the whole patterns of emergent properties and stuff like that, it's all a matter of just the laws of physics and billions of years to understand like how these complex structures have come about. I mean, that's the exact principles that scientists have used to determine basically how this stuff works. It's all a matter of like biomathematics, and really our species is really just an extension of the universe itself, as just an example of how self-organized systems, or self-organized like phenomena can come about if you apply a dynamic system and basic regularities to it. I mean, like to say that that we're so complex that we must have been designed. I mean, that just raises the question, because you have to ask, if we're so complex and if this mind is so complex, where did that mind come from? And if you say if it's always been here, then you might as well say that overall the potential for that overall complexity has been there, and be done with it. I mean, you're just with this, you're just begging the question. You're not really explaining what's actually going on in here. And I mean this whole God hypothesis is just way too small to understand the universe. Anyone else?
Well, the fact that God's supposed to be the creator of the world and says that bats are birds calls us into some questions about Christianity as a whole, as an understanding.
Oh, for those who may be interested in putting up some reference materials describing how to get it in the text chat, and there's actually something else coming up on mathematically modeling evolution and such.
Any other questions you have there, Tanya?
Yeah, I hope this isn't going too far way over your head, Tanya. Like, so I mean, does it answer your questions at all?
Yeah, it does help. A little of it's going over my head, but that's okay. I'm able to follow you a little bit there.
If you want some good videos to watch, there's a guy, I can't remember, I think it's Potholer 54. He's done a great series of videos which sort of goes from the Big Bang to present day and covers a lot of this stuff.
Oh, okay. What's that name one more time? I'm going to write it down.
Potholer 54.
Okay. 54. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what the series is called. I think it's called The Origins of the Universe. But yeah, watch it. It's about, I think it's about 8 or 9 videos, and he goes through the whole lot. It's a good place to get this stuff sort of like down.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds perfect for me. Cool. Thanks. I did have another question, but it's totally off topic, but it's a science question if you want to
Go ahead.
Okay. Why do magnets have opposite sides? Do we know?
Why do magnets have opposite sides? Like, why do magnets have poles?
Yes. Do we know, like, why that happened?
I think it's because, like, well, I mean, I feel like it. I remember like in physics, they mentioned monopoles. So I mean, that's like I think it must be that they have two opposite. I mean, the reason they have two opposite poles is probably because I don't know. It has honestly something to do with like physics on that level. Hold on a second. Guys, you got anything to offer to that?
I don't, to be honest. That's one thing that it's a very interesting question. And I'm just trying to see if I can find an answer to that one.
I know how to solve maximum equations,
like
but I
what
don't
kind
know
of
that.
like just the regular magnets, or just like in general, like in the natural world?
Yes, like naturally speaking. Yeah, it's just something I was curious about, because when I was looking into all this stuff about gravity and all the different, just physics stuff, why things
I feel like for some reason could we I feel like we could bring this into like sort of or like relativity, because that sort of interests me with that regard. But that probably might change the subject. Hold on. Okay, yeah, dipoles. Okay, yeah, very common source of magnetic field shown in this on Wikipedia, by the way. Very common source of magnetic field shown in nature is a dipole with a south pole and north pole, terms dating back to the use of magnets as compasses interacting with the Earth's field indicates. Since opposite ends of the magnets are attracted, the north pole of a magnet is attracted to the south pole of another magnet. The Earth's north magnetic pole is physically a south pole, so as it attracts the north pole of a compass. A magnetic field contains energy, and physical systems move towards configurations with lower energy. With diamagnetic material is placed in a magnetic field. A magnetic pole tends to align itself in opposed polarity to that field, thereby lowering the net field strength. Something like that.
Can people hear me? Because I was having audio problems.
We hear you.
Yep.
Hey, sir.
Okay. It has to do with how the atoms line up in the object.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I've just found a nice little thing that says that that if you cut a magnet in half, you would just get two magnets. It's that every microscopic iron atom aligns in one direction. The poles are just points on the object through which the line of domain alignment passes.
It all has to do with electricity. I mean, that's why it's all one force.
Electromagnetic, yeah.
That's why if you take a magnet over a thin piece of iron and you rub it long way, you rub it all one direction back and forth, you'll make it magnetic because you're realigning the atoms to go one direction.
Oh,
We
wow.
call it north and south just because we live on Earth and that's what we call north and south.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say the sun. The sun has a bunch of magnetic poles. You know, thousands.
So
of
it's just like the sun, for example, it's just rubbing, or it's just aligning the iron a certain way. Then that's why it's okay. That's interesting.
I mean, the Earth is a dynamo. The sun has to do with charged particles getting caught. You know, they have those big bands. I
Yeah.
forget what they're called, but those both have their own poles.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And magnetic force, that has absolutely nothing to do with gravity, right?
Yeah, correct. There's four forces in the universe. You've got the nuclei strong force, the nuclei weak force, gravity, and electromagnetism. There have been some flutterings in the past, and every once in a while, people do wonder: is gravity connected to just electromagnetism? But the thing is, a simple magnet could overcome Earth's gravitational pull, and there is a lot of science out there which shows why they are different forces. If you look up gravity and electromagnetism, there are lots of papers, even ones that written towards people with a lower understanding in science, that will explain the differences between the two, which would be a nice bit of reading to digest.
Yeah, also relativity. That's just
Yeah.
just an aspect of it as well. Not necessarily. I mean, it just with regard to the whole gravity thing.
That's cool. Laboom just shared a link to a Minute Physics video called Magnets, How Do They Work? So I'm going to check that out after the hangout. I just found out about this channel, Minute Physics, like a few weeks ago. Shanna told me about it, and it's freaking awesome. I love this channel.
What, Shanna Rocky?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, she's freaking awesome. I love her.
Yeah. Yeah, I love picking her brain.
Them D's be smart.
Little too smart. Maybe she's
Okay. Yes. Okay, so Rick Santorum, uh, basically the guy that said homosexuality would lead to uh, like man on dog, I think. Now he's talking about how secularism is basically not just a brief shift. We might get progress science a little later. He thinks that secularism is a religion. Hold on, I'm just gonna screenshot this.
Is he somebody that's running for political office or involved in politics?
Yes, he's
I'm sorry, why
Indeed.
do Americans vote for these people? You wouldn't have a hope in prayer if you were that loony of actually occupying, parliamentary office. I
what they
mean,
do is they spread some large number of wingnuts out across a large enough geographical area to be given a representative seat, and then, well, you have representatives of wingnuts.
I heard Tommy Hall, I think it was just yesterday, make some ridiculous claims similar to that, where he said that homosexuals shouldn't be allowed to like run Boy Scouts or anything because they shouldn't be around young boys. And that is just so stupid because like if you use that same logic, which obviously his is like totally not correct, but I mean you could use that same logic with anybody. You could say that about female straight teachers. Like they shouldn't be allowed to teach children because they might be attracted to the little boys in the class. I mean that's just
well, here's the thing.
so
Wouldn't the
dumb.
argument then also say the best thing for the Boy Scouts would be to have people who are lesbians then take the Boy Scouts? Because there's no way they're going to have any compunction to want to sleep with a little boy.
Yeah, yeah. Hold on, Chaz. He's talking about like he's saying it's neutral, but it's talking about because it has its own, because secularism has its own set of values. It's apparently detrimental to like the moral construct of our nation, which is the whole like one nation under God thing. So yeah, just an excuse for theocracy.
I would like to bring up a point that this is not this particular idea is not so much about them being homosexual. I mean, that's what their point's making, but society kind of views men as that anyway. I mean, most people would find it creepy if a man was in charge of a Girl Scout troop. Most people find it creepy if a man is teaching, the lower grades.
Oh, well, look at the actual stuff where one of the airlines actually made a man move because he was sat next to a child that wasn't his. And, they were worried, I don't know, that he might molest the child on the airline in front of a load of witnesses, so...
Yeah, I bet he wasn't gay.
Well, he wasn't. He was, and they didn't even ask that. It was just a man sat next to a child, It's become sort of like the way, even though I do believe there is a lot of statistics out there which show that women are more likely to molest children because generally women are the ones that get more access to children in our society. Men are still vilified as the pedos.
What has homosexuality got to do with paedophilia?
Nothing, but people are stupid,
Yeah.
David.
Yeah, but just going back to the main thesis behind why I showed that video. I think he might have the understanding of secularism a bit mistaken, because it's not that it's a religion. It's the fact that the reason we have secularism is for the sake of neutrality, which entails equality for people, whether they're religious or not. And as far as religion is in society, it has its place among people who want it, but so does education, so does law, so does science. I mean, and so do politics. These things all have their own category in society, and therefore they should be separate if it's to maintain a sense of stability. I mean, You personally, I'm fine with religious people. Just keep it out of like schools where kids are supposed to learn science. Keep it out of people's lives where it's in the bedroom or anything like that. Keep your hands off people's bodies, and it'll be fine.
Can I point out the other thing that's glowingly funny
By
by
all
this?
means.
This guy's like anti-gay because they're all pedos, yet is also then anti-secularism. Can we just look back to how many religious people have molested children? And I'm not just having a dig at the Catholic priests, but it always seems that every sort of month I have to look at the news and see some story about some American minister of some church being done for having child porn and molesting like choir boys. It's just they just can't seem to stop it.
Yeah, I just read I just read a report like last month talking about like how a preacher like molested a dog's butt. I mean, like seriously, like this is just ridiculous.
Well, maybe Tommy Hall was right that homosexuality leads to having sex with dogs.
Go ahead, speak, Nadia.
I should point out that there have been a number of scandals, I guess more recently, about rabbis, imams, and even Buddhist monks having these kinds of scandals too. And I can dig up links if need be.
Ultimately, it's
Yeah,
just
cool.
it's just that dog whistle politics that goes on in America. Not dog whistle politics per se.
See, homosexual with dogs on the mind.
Absolutely, but no, it's more to do. Oh God, what do you call that type of politics? When
It is dog whistle.
Yeah, when it's just appealing to like abortion. Oh my God, gays. It's just appealing to that. Santorini. Yeah, he just needs to get over his frothy mix problem on Google. But no, I mean, it's just it's terrible. I mean, it's scapegoating groups of people, and I think in society as a whole, when one segment of society gets scapegoated, it's chilling for the rest of society, because it can happen to any group in society if they're willing to do that. It's a common tactic they use.
Oh, indeed. I find it funny that America is supposed to be a secular nation, yet doesn't have a very secular society. Britain, non-secular nation. I mean, the head of state is the head of the Anglican Church, and yet we have a very secular society.
That's the whole thing where it falls down, isn't it? I mean, it pays lip service to it. I mean, I think really if you say things like that, it should disqualify you from political office. If you're bringing religious viewpoints and that into politics.
Dave, do you think they would have voted for Screaming Lord Sutch?
Look, they voted for Sarah Palin. And she was
that was in
Alaska this week, in the past couple of days. Did you read about that?
No, she's been saying more silly things.
No, her.
Yeah, but
so surely she can tell you when they're invading.
Yeah, she's invented I think a channel like dedicated or some type of some type of news thing where she basically just spouted propaganda. But like the thing with religion and politics is that it's sort of used as like an engine, by which like people can like use like just act like puppet masters just to influence the masses. I mean, there is such a thing out here known as the evangelical Christian vote, and how much you can appeal to a person's religion, with regard to social policy and stuff like that. Now, you might not necessarily have to believe it, but it's just like it's just for the sake of show and how much of a theocrat you can play to beat. Because if you play to that base, the conservatives will back you on it. But the problem is it has sort of it has sort of a bit of an aftermath in which it has an anti-science type of line to it, at the cost of people ignoring, basic concepts like for example, climate change. There have actually been politicians who have responded to that issue by reciting Bible verses about how because it's written this way, therefore the environment shouldn't change. And now, yeah, the Bible might be important to them in their spiritual life, but I don't see how that's relevant to actually making sure the environment is stable for humans actually existing on this planet. So I mean, it's really a matter of focusing on laws that could be made on the basis of publicly verifiable evidence and reason, and not superstition and dogma.
Okay.
But do you think as well, I think religion in that aspect can be used for idiots, where the people have been dragged along, like by the Koch brothers, for example, where instead of enacting, environmental legislation, they're trying to dress up in the religious side.
Okay, guys, seriously, you guys are going to make me defend religious people? You guys are going to make me do that? Okay, here's a phrase for you. Here's a phrase for you. Do we stop representing people because we don't like what they think?
No. I offered a caveat.
No,
I offered a caveat right there. I said they're free to have it, but I just don't want any laws based on it. Okay. I offered that caveat right there, so don't. Yeah. I'm not against it.
As far as the Constitution goes, it doesn't make us secular. It gives you freedom to practice religion. It doesn't give you freedom from religion.
It does give you freedom for exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, it does. What the fuck?
It's not supposed to protect you from it. All it states is you can't make a law that discriminates other religions.
America isn't a Christian nation.
That's not true, because that's happened in states where they have laws against atheists holding political office, for instance.
Yeah, but atheism isn't a religion, is it?
Well, we're supposed to have separation of church and state.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
Which means a church can't can't use the government, right? I don't know. Do you guys see the distinction? You can't make a law that discriminates against religion.
Correct.
Yeah, and as a result,
but we're also not supposed to have laws that make us have to abide by certain religious concepts either. We're supposed to, not saying that happens, but that's how it's supposed to be from what I know.
I mean, I think it's safe to say. Hold on. I think it's safe to say that what we are seeing in recent years is a more leaning towards a more secularization of society, in which 30% of the population is now considered non-religious. And the main thing is that you're seeing more secular groups actually come out of hiding, actually making this clear about maintaining that yes, this is an open secular society, and with that separation thing, it offers that neutrality which guarantees equality, not just amongst the religious but of the non-religious. Yeah, they have freedom of religion, but also that entails freedom from religion. They're free to believe whatever they like within reason. I'm free to say that that's fucking crazy and disagree. All right, we're all free for that.
Yeah.
Joe, what you think of this?
I would point out.
Anyone that's quiet? Oh, wait, go on, Nadia.
All right, I'd point out that there are quite a bit of incest between the Republican Party and I guess what you would call the Christian right. And there are 2 or 3 different ways this goes. One is that, of course, the Christian right backs school boards where they can. And it's kind of done like a kind of massive infiltration campaign against to the Republican Party to basically get a party that represents their interests and so on.
Oh, is she gone? That is the worst freeze frame ever. Did you see that?
Okay, sorry. What was the last thing you
Nadia,
heard?
your eyes were rolled back in your head. You looked freakish. That was scary as hell.
Pretty much start over, Nadia, because you were cutting up pretty much as soon as you started.
Okay. There's a very incestuous relationship between the Republican Party and the religious right in the U.S. So, a number of things went on. There was in the 70s the whole moral majority affair and so on.
Nadia,
That kind
can you
of
talk?
back into. Go ahead. Okay, it reacted to kind of Carter's liberalism, even though I guess religious, by wanting to make sure that there's a.
Okay, 5, 4,
Sorry.
3,
Hello.
2, 1. Okay, and the king says we're moving on to a different topic. Well,
Can you
it's
not
not
hear
it's
Nadia?
not related to this necessary
Well,
case.
Nadia.
Can you hear me,
All
Wolf?
right, so
Wait,
Can you hear-
what?
Can you hear me, Wolf?
Can you hear people?
crap. I think
Can you hear me?
I think it's one of those things where a person like leaves the room and then they come back in, you can't hear them.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
you-
because I think we're all hearing Nadia.
Yeah, I hear Nadia. Hey, Nadia, would you reload again?
Okay, I can do that. Might help if Wolf did too.
I
If
think.
he's back
Yeah.
faster in 5 minutes, you won't have issues. Yeah.
Huh?
If you're back faster in 5 minutes, it won't go offline. Okay, how about now? Just got back in faster than me.
Can you hear her, Wolf?
Nadia, try to speak.
Yeah, I did actually. I'm still trying.
She's
Hello.
talking now, Wolf.
It's not.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I can hear her. Okay, there we
I
go.
think you heard her through my speakers, though. I mean, I had my mic open while she was talking. That's why I think you heard her.
Yeah, so Wolf reloading actually would be more likely to fix things, but still, I was saying there's a huge incestuous relationship between the Republican Party and the religious right. It goes back pretty far, even before the moral majority, even where the religious right was essentially against racial desegregation and such. So they were looking for a champion while the Democrats were abandoning the Klan and, I guess, discriminatory policies. So from there, the moral majority during Carter's term got really PO'd because a sort of like false Christian, as they viewed it, got up there and ruined everything. So from there, yeah, this mass infiltration campaign the Republican Party went on, and now that we have kind of a Christianized Republican Party, well, they're using their same old Christian methods and so on to reach out to their voters and such. They're literally campaigning from the pulpits, and when not having people campaign for them. They also have the American Family Association pass out the scorecards in church, and it goes on and on. So, yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Yeah, but we have a problem in the United States where we have two different methods of thinking that are based in legal thought that run counteropposed to each other. We make laws for moral reasons, and Christianity has their own morality. So, I mean, where do we draw the line at?
I'm not sure there's any way but to just plain defeat them. Good question is whether they can be. it's not so obvious as just pointing at the demographic problem, because that's being counteracted in a number of ways. I mean, for instance, these steps taken to further exaggerate malapportionment are really having huge impacts, causing like totally opposite election results to anything that would be fair and so on.
Proportional representation.
Yeah, and really we need to focus on ways to counteract this, like this I think better approaches to counteract this nonsensical bullshit, because I'm just reading an excerpt from something Pat Robertson recently talked about. Okay, our daughter shocked us with the news she has a girlfriend. He has a homosexual relationship. Our children were raised in church. Yeah, basically he was commenting on this on the fact that this girl had this lesbian relationship. He was talking about how girl-on-girl movies make people gay curious, apparently. I really feel like the main thing needs to be more education, like just in recognizing how people, how their behaviors really come about because of their environment, and how it's not like a choice or some type of rebellion. I mean, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. It's natural.
I can't help but think whenever I look at American politics, I remember the words. It's wedge politics, wedge issues. Right, there's real major issues that need discussed in America. Maternity leave is one that comes to mind. I think America, the only other country that has less maternity leave in the entire world is Papua New Guinea. Right, so while people are I think the political sides, political parties are so similar, have so much interest in common, that all they can come up with is these wedge issues: abortions, gays, welfare mothers, right? And while they're distracting the populace with these issues, things that should be talked about aren't being talked about. You know, I think there's an element of that in American politics, a big element of that in American politics.
think it doesn't just expand to American politics. I think a lot with every system, people favour their own, and it's the same in British politics. We used to have a good side of like an opposition party, but now we don't. We just got somebody who's less right wing. They're still right wing. They're still authoritarian. They're just not as right wing as the other people, and it's just a farce. You're not really given a choice. It's just the shiniest of two turds, or the better polished, and it's not the way a political system should be running. And I think one of the other problems, Dave, touching on what you said, I think the reason why a lot of the time politicians spend so much time on these wedge issues, they mean something more to us because they're things we vaguely understand a lot more than other things. And I think the other thing that makes these wedge issues so easy is you can make a law that bans abortion or make a law that legalizes it, but to try and actually fix some of the serious problems which don't have just the convenience of making up some law, because it'll either cause more problems in the long run, or it just won't actually do anything. And I think one of the examples I can give for this is like trying to increase racial harmony with segregation law, for an example. Well, if we just keep all the blacks and whites separate, no one will be racist towards each other. What it actually does is then foster an idea that these people should be separate, and that it then harbours more negative cohesion between the races. And so that's why I think they like to stick to these thin end of the wedge issues.
I think one of the problems as well, so look, I just want to get this out really quickly and I'll shut up, is there's no left wing in the Western world. There's no viable left wing left. There's no party for the people anymore. I think it's apparent in America that the average person has no voice in America. And I think when they bring up wedge, when they bring up these wedge issues, it gives them an illusion of a voice.
Yeah. Like what an elaboration on what David was saying. Hopefully, Wolf can hear me. Is that essentially the candidates agree on
Yep.
most of the issues of substance, where essentially the ultra wealthy and so on have any stake, and so they have to find something that doesn't have a financial impact. Probably some of the only ones that they can focus on with any kind of legitimate impact would be, like essentially rights issues for various minorities. And that's about all they can do without impact.
That's a very
financial
good
impact.
point. Very good point. To go after issues that don't affect, your big money. So that makes a lot of sense that they would avoid stuff like that. But you know what? You were right. I can't remember who said this. It might have been Chaz who said this, that people kind of just cling to their own. And you're so right, because, the Christians are going to vote for the Christian. It doesn't matter what they really say. If they're a Christian, they're going to vote for the Christian. And like you said, they preach about it at church and make sure they tell people who to vote for, pretty much. And like my grandfather, he is a Democrat, and he would only vote for whoever
Democrat.
whoever the union told him to, because he was a part of the union. He worked in Michigan in the auto shops, and the union's big there and all that. And I'll never forget it. We were talking about it one night, and I was like, who are you going to vote for? And he said, well, I'm going to vote for whoever the union tells me to. And he was dead serious. And there's a lot of people like that. And it's pretty much like that for the Christians. It's like that for the Democrats, sort of. And it would just be nice if people would just think for themselves.
Well, this is the problem with with politics, especially in America, because you have a two-party system. It's essentially you either vote for the for or you vote for the against, and the problem is that it's very, very easy, because of human beings' tribalistic minds. Do I fit in category A and agree with all of category A's stances, or do I fall in category B and agree with all of category B's stances? So it seems like, yeah, I'm a typical Republican, so I'm pro this and anti that, and pro that and anti that, and pro that and anti that. They're my stances. So, or, I'm a Democrat, so I'm for these things and obviously against that. That's what, it kind of pigeonholes people into one or two categories, and it's pretty much like drawing a line in the sand and just saying stand on whatever side you want. It is a very reductive thing, and then it's just like, well, I'm just going to vote for the Democrat because I'm pro this issue and so are they. Well, I'm going to vote for the Republicans because they're against that issue and so am I. It shouldn't be that case. What we really need is, and this is the idea that I have for British politics and politics as a whole, where governments don't nearly have as much power as they do, but for instance, you get given a set of policies, yeah, and you don't know whose is whom's. You just hear debates go on in the House, which is made up of equal representation. If you're going to have party politics, then equal representation of the parties. They come together, they decide what their policies are on issues. You then sit there and you vote without knowing whose policy is who. You vote for the policy you think is the best fit for that situation, and then what will happen is whichever policy in that situation is voted for as the majority is the one that's enacted for the next 4 years or however long on that subject for that thing. So you don't get a system whereby you're voting for the Republican Party and you might get 4 of your 4s covered, but you might also have to tacitly agree to a load of things you're against. You just vote for what you think is the best thing, and then ultimately the majority agreed upon idea is the one that we try out. Then that way, if that one's fucked up, then we know, right, Well, that one went bollocks up last time, so we won't vote for that for another 4 years. We'll try one of the other ideas, and that would be a much fairer system. None of this silly nonsense of, vote for some sort of dictator. No, we'd actually get a say in our politics. People would actually vote. We pretend we're free in the West, and we like to compare ourselves to other places. We might be able to vote.
Chess.
So you want
I-
actual majority rule?
Well, isn't that what happens now?
No. I mean, if you had majority rule, I think you'd wind up very possibly with a theocracy, man. Like, there's a lot of people that say they're, Christians in this country, and that's the way they would go.
Yeah,
the
but speaking
problem-
of,
Sorry.
okay, I'm gonna let Laboom finish on this, and then we're gonna move on to a different topic because it's getting this is another topic that I was interested in since we're getting into it, and actually, Boom, go on before I let it out.
First, the majority problem is that the majority would try to overrule the minorities. A lot of the time, they don't consider how minorities are seeing on this perspective. Secondly, that's why you have amendments in the Constitution, which allows you to say, hey, we could still protect these people. Thirdly, I don't know who said that the Establishment Clause is not a separation of church and state. That's James Madison's quote on his assessment of the First Amendment. That is to separate one from the other, because you cannot have freedom of religion without freedom from religion to prevent other people who have a religion ruling over the other people who have a different religion, and forcing them to go with one religion or another. That's why you have restrictions on it. But with this, you have to have a set of a way of appealing something that does not work, a way to fix something that's inherently flawed, and continue forward. And there has to be a way to say, well, this doesn't get enacted at all to begin with, or if it gets enacted and it's against basic human rights, there has to be a way to appeal it immediately, or whenever we're able to do so. The Supreme Court is what we use for that.
Okay, now speaking of which, earlier about the whole theocracy thing. Now, it is, as you all know, it is September 11th. It is that it's been 14 years since I think about that time since
13 years.
since the twin 13 years, yeah, right,
Yep.
since Twin Towers fell. And now we're dealing with ISIS beheading people. Now there were whole dealings with our Arab allies in order to deal with this recent terrorist group. But what do you, the panel, think about that general issue? Like, are we doing the right thing, going to our allies and dealing with this, or like what? Go ahead, Shek.
What general issue are you talking about? What?
Like, how do we deal with
specific-
how do we deal with terrorism?
Connect
in
it to some
2014?
detail.
How are we dealing with terrorism in 2014, and are we doing it the right way? Like, what do you think, generally?
Well,
I think labeling.
you can't
Hold
ever.
on for 1 second, Chaz.
Sorry, mate, you're
I think
breaking in and out.
Hold on for 1 second, Chaz. I think we need.
What? You keep muting yourself. Okay. Well, there you go. All right, go ahead, continue, Chaz.
Yeah. I think there isn't really a way you can quote-unquote deal with terrorism. A war on terror certainly doesn't deal with it. It's like trying to cure a bee sting by finding a bee's nest and hitting it with a hammer and keep hitting it if they keep stinging you. The problem is like the Middle East has so many problems, and every time you go in there, all you're going to do is start swinging the pendulum the other way half the time. Because of the problem with terrorism is it comes down to one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. And even the Imam Ali, who was a good friend of Muhammad, said that there would never be peace in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't like each other. A lot of people despise each other for generational reasons, for war reasons, for how much death another person's caused, and assuming that and the principle that a lot of beliefs over in the Middle East is that we have to even out the numbers, but the numbers are so dramatic that you could actually never even them out because no one could tell what would be even. Because they live by
Numbers of what?
Of how many people died. So one side has this amount of deaths, and the other side has this amount of deaths, and there's been so many that they don't even know. They couldn't even speculate on what would be even. So they would still kill each other, thinking they're trying to even it out.
Boom! This is not about just Israel. This is not just about Israel and Palestine, though. This is the Mideast encompasses Saudi Arabia, Iraq,
yes.
Iran. So wait a second. You're talking about this tiny segment of the Middle East and terrorism.
What? I don't think my.
You talked about the numbers. You talk about comparing the numbers. That's the numbers between the Israelis and the Palestinians, correct?
No, of who's being killed and who's fighting against the people being killed and who's killing those people and so on and so forth. The current any war.
I think the thing that concerns me about those beheadings.
Hold on for 1 second, please. Hold on for 1 second, though. What does that have to do with?
Sheikh. The beheadings
what?
that happened. We were talking about the beheadings.
Okay.
Israel.
We were talking about.
I think there's an absence.
We were talking about the Middle East in general. We were not talking about Israel.
Hold on. Gabble. Now, Sheikh. Clarify what you were talking. Hold on. I just want there to be a bit of spontaneous order in the hangout right now. Now, Sheikh, clarify what you said, and whoever wants to talk next, go, but one at a time, please.
When I hear people talk about the Middle East and I hear about numbers, the numbers that I hear on the news are a discussion about Israel and Palestine. The outcry is that, well, the Israelis have killed so many of these people, and how many of Israelis have been killed? That's what the numbers were, what I was associating with. When we're talking about the Middle East and terrorism, though, the question is, what are we doing about terrorism in 2014? It's not just about the Middle East, even. I mean, there's this guy, the Anders Breivik. I mean, he committed a terrorist act also. There's things that happen in the United States that amount to terrorism. It's not a Muslim Arab thing. It's we're labeling an act as terrorism. So I think that there needs to be some clarification to not just let this be generalized to the point that it generalized to.
I don't
I think
remember me
everybody. I think we
specifying
were all
anybody.
pretty clear that what
Yeah,
we were talking about was the religious terrorism stuff.
Then
Well, actually, let me
about
be clear
ISIS.
as to what I was referring to. I'm referring to human nature, that we have a tendency, when someone kills us, we want to kill them. That's what I was talking about.
I have no idea how that's relevant, but
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. Not to cut you off, Sheikh, but I think the danger of that is fundamentalist Islam with this regard is that it is the direct antithesis to our values with regard to human freedom and democracy. So, I mean, the thing that ISIS wants, and that a majority of the majority of people in the Middle East fear from them, specific religious groups of Sunni and even Shiite. They're fearing that they might produce a caliphate that is essentially it's not what the majority of the Middle East want to see, but it is essentially an Islamic theocracy that will rule through like this interpretation of Sharia law and is willing to do that at the cost of someone's head, quite literally. Now, what the United States has done in terms of calling on Arab nations for assistance in dealing with this sort of issue, but I feel like there needs to be there needs to be I feel like more like better strategic approaches to how we actually like seek out and deal with these kinds of individuals.
I think the thing that I find concerning about it is that with these two analysts is that it's going to be used, which is happening now, as justification to go into war again. And I think we're playing into ISIS's hands by doing that, because we're depleting our treasuries by keep on going to wars in the Middle East.
Well, the other thing
I think
is,
in some ways, if we can, if we could stand back and try and deal with it diplomatically, or what we have been doing for the past 40 years is destabilize those countries. All we have to do is keep on destabilizing them. I mean, that's what we're doing. I can't help but think it's you know, a war for war's sake, more money being spent on wars.
Well, what do you guys think about, because from what Obama said, he's saying that he's not going to put, like, boots on the ground with this whole ISIS thing. Like, it sounds like he's going to
does like
try
to drone on.
He's gonna, it sounds like he's going to just try to, like, maybe bomb, like, you know, areas where there's, like, they're training people or something like that. What do you guys think about that kind of strategy?
Well,
the notion of boots on the ground. Sorry, Chaz. I'll let you go right after. The notion of boots on the ground is stupid. It's a stupid notion. It's completely irrelevant. Him pointing out that I'm not going to put troops on the ground, but I'm going to send missiles to blow people up. It's equivalent. It's as equal of an action as putting boots on the ground. In terms of the reaction, how people see it, how people see their people dying, how they see people from America killing their people. It doesn't matter what devices you use to kill people. If people are dying, people are still dying. It doesn't matter if you use soldiers, it doesn't matter if you use tanks, it doesn't matter if you use airplanes or drones or whatever. People are still dying.
I would slightly disagree with you on that, Libum. To the fact that I think if you sit back and just press the button and, you know, a little drone flies over and bombs somewhere, that is in some way just so cold, so emotionless, that I think it affects people more if their loved ones were just killed just by a bombing rather than actually killed by soldiers during a war, like on the battlefield. And that's the other thing with bombs. It's civilian casualties. Bombs don't make decisions about whether somebody's a credible threat. A bomb just explodes, and it takes a lot of civilians with it. Isn't that really just like saying, well, our answer to terrorism is our own brand of terrorism?
Exactly.
What's that? There's some fire. Quick, let's light these flames. That'll do it.
Well, and on two other fronts, well, you know, $1 million missiles and so on. You know, mean like 1,000 people who died that month because all the healthcare budget was diverted toward the military, and so on and so forth. So in a way, we're getting a body count, just not quite directly. Also, Tanya, I got that book on the modeling of evolution and such. So.
Hold on, David. I'm gonna let you talk in a minute because I know you wanted to say something. But I think the problem is with the United States being the superpower that it is, we have to have that big military. But yeah, I can see the problem of trying to police the world rather than trying to nation build. But when you're dealing with like with like a sort of like dangerous group that essentially is threatening a majority of the world based on radical ideology. I think the main thing is essentially I agree with this with this reaching out to different countries and dealing with this. But the main thing is to basically neutralize the threat, make this like into a minor issue rather than trying to destabilize an area. Now, go ahead, David. What you're about to say?
Yeah, I think the one problem is, right, with it, ISIS is a bigger problem as it's been made out to be, right? Are they these? If you look at that region, these are desperate ethnic groups that have lived together for millennia, and ISIS is destabilizing them by themselves. I could see there being a groundswell in those countries against ISIS anyway happening. But the main point, I suppose, I'm trying to make is America is failing internally. It's not paying for infrastructure. Its bridges are collapsing. Its motorways are collapsing. Its health system is fucked. There's school systems fucked. There's so many things that are wrong with America. Now, if I was a country that's an enemy, so-called, of America, I would go them into a perpetual war. Because what that will do is bankrupt America. It will cause civil unrest in America. We've seen this happen after 9/11. We saw what happened with Al-Qaeda when they blew up those towers, and the amount of money that went out of the Treasury to fight a war for 10 years. And so what happens is you get a population then that are just so... you create social unrest in that country. We're seeing it in America. We're seeing it all over America. So instead of going to these perpetual wars, it would be better off if they spent the money in their own country and America getting itself up to scratch. Because my gut feeling is if we get war with ISIS, they're winning. They're going to win because it's going to destabilize America internally.
Well, the fun part is that we're not the only ones doing this, and we're not the only ones who are droning. We're providing support from technology we already built. We aren't building new ones.
I think the thing is, though, with America, it's just how much it's how much of the money, how much money is getting spent on military compared to other countries. No other country on planet Earth is spending as much on their military as America is. And that money could be so much better spent in other places.
I'd just like to...
Isn't it more than the rest of the world combined?
Yeah. Well, it's you spend more of the top 15 nations. You spend more on your military than the other 14 combined. But I'd actually point out something to Rolf. You don't actually need that big a military. If you look at a map, America is pretty much all on its lonesome on one side of the page, and everyone else is on the other side. America used to have an idea of not getting involved in politics of the rest of the world, and you guys wouldn't need that big a military at all. You guys could exist perfectly fine with a system like Switzerland, which has only about 5% of its military as acting soldiers, and everybody else are gun-owning civilians who are there for if it was needed. If you had a threat, like for instance, Russia was threatening to invade, and you saw ships coming over the horizon, or Chinook helicopters your way, you'd have the ability to call into action your 5%, and then the other 95% can start grabbing their guns, you know, reporting into their local base, and stuff like that. You guys don't need to spend nearly half as much as you do on military in order to keep your country safe. The other thing that would be quite good is if you didn't give people this marvelous little moment where, and I'm not saying that we're not just as guilty, where there are these people in the Middle East who, for one brief split second, own something that's worth way more than their whole entire community is, before it decimates their entire community. I mean, you're throwing millions of pounds to just explode on a piece of dirt that's not even worth £1 million.
Yeah.
Just because you haven't sent you a Christmas card in the last 10 years.
Yeah. Well, the main point in which you can say, with us being energy dependent, if we're able to be energy dependent, we don't have to. Which I don't even know if we even gather that much from outside sources. So if we collapse, we'd end up collapsing with, if you would be energy dependent, you collapse, you would still have the ability to run some of the infrastructure. You just collapse economically speaking, and a lot of other places would suffer from that because we're kind of the marketplace country.
I think it would probably bring down the world economy.
Yeah, we are the marketplace of the world.
And the problem is, I feel like, just going back with the main thing. I mean, this group is claiming, huh?
I think if America disappeared, the rest of the world would just get on with it.
Well, when we crashed, we caused other countries to crash.
Yeah, we're not an island where we're not involved and invested in each other. There's implications in changing or removing something that's a massive part of a bigger system.
Well,
to say that nothing changes,
exists.
Let me finish, please. It's ridiculous. The mortgage debacle actually spread into England and into parts of Europe and caused was a major part of the economic downturn in Europe.
I'm sorry, that wasn't just the only part. It was to do with.
I didn't say it was the only part.
Yes,
I never said it was the only part.
As well.
There were other parts.
That mainly affected the UK because of how much of the UK's money was being held by Iceland banks in accounts that were supposed to be given like 25% interest, which could never be maintained, and that money just disappeared, leaving a gigantic hole.
Exactly is agreeing with exactly what I'm
them
saying.
Another $2 billion to lose.
Community, so that when you were.
Okay, guys, hold on. Okay, finish your point.
If you're talking about Iceland or the United States as being factors on the economy in Europe or in England specifically, that is exactly the point. You can't just remove something and say that it's not going to affect you when they're totally interdependent, completely interdependent. At many levels.
So the Romans coming out of Britain cripple Britain? No, the system will just move on. Another system will come up. If America was, about 2,000 years, less than 2,000 years ago. But if America was to disappear tomorrow, just poof into a cloud of smoke, the rest of the world's economy might be affected, but it would only be affected for a small time. It would adjust.
How do you know that?
Okay,
the economy isn't some sort of malevolent thing. It's a system that human beings created. We can alter it. We can adjust it. We can change it. Hence how currency is changed. We've moved to the fiat system. We didn't have the fiat system always. We haven't always had the Great British Pound. England at one stage was the superpower. When the Great British, when the empire collapsed, it didn't financially cripple the world.
It wasn't a world economy.
When Rome
okay, guys.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a world economy. It's the biggest empire the world's ever fucking known, Sheik. It was half
Calm the fuck down, seriously.
Don't say dumb fucking shit and expect me not to answer you back.
Hold the fuck on, both of you.
Please, let us say what we gotta say, man.
Dude, I'm about to turn the broadcast off. I need to freaking do this. Okay, damn, I don't want to talk over you, but shit. Please. Now listen, look, it's been a good talk, and just to respond to what Chaz said, yes, America is like an empire, but I mean, yeah, if we did go out, the economy would still go on, but we are a
How do
big
you
player
know
in
that?
that. And
Well, you don't know
Because it's
that.
happened in the history,
dude,
several
Dude,
fucking times.
Fucking apples and oranges. Just because something
That's
happened
like
in the
trying to
history.
say if human beings left, then the world would die.
Yeah, same thing. You're talking about things, and you're equivocating without having any detail.
Okay, look. I'm trying to finish. Now we could continue this off air. Okay. Okay, fine. Be mature. Shit.
Well, that's all
Oh,
it's
fuck.
done.
Oh, okay. Now this has been a good talk. We've gotten into a series of discussions. Now, as I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. Yes, we are an empire. If we did go out, we would the economy would probably keep going. But like I said, being a big player and being involved with the countries that we are in, we do owe it to try to perform some and put some stability in these interactions with regard to the Middle East and domestic and whatever. All right, now I'm going to take this off air. All right, guys, this has been Wolf King. Peace out.